I'm about to reveal something shocking that will completely change how you see one of cricket's biggest legends. A cricket hero worth $16 million, sitting in a courtroom, fighting his own wife over money, while reporters write down every embarrassing detail. His most expensive car, the one he got for winning the World Cup, might be taken away from him. But that's just the beginning of this crazy story. Hit that red subscribe button right now, because once you hear this story, you'll understand why millions of people are still talking about it today. It's 2012, and inside a packed courthouse in Sri Lanka, one of the world's most famous cricketers is sitting quietly while lawyers argue about his money. The woman across from him used to be his loving wife. Now she wants 20 million rupees from him. That's more money than most people will see in their entire lives. Outside in the parking lot sits a silver car, not just any car, but the exact same Audi he received when Sri Lanka won the World Cup in 1996. This car is worth more than most houses, and now his wife wants half of everything he owns, including this precious vehicle. But here's the crazy part, this courthouse drama was just the tip of the iceberg. The real scandal was still coming, and when it hit, it would destroy everything he had built over 20 years of cricket. Sanath Jayasuriya wasn't born rich or famous. He came from a small town called Matara, where most families struggle to make ends meet. His father worked hard just to put food on the table, and young Sanath had to fight for every opportunity he got. But this boy had something special. He could hit a cricket ball harder and faster than anyone had ever seen before. When he first started playing for Sri Lanka, nobody expected much from this small island nation. They were the underdogs, the team that bigger countries didn't take seriously. But Jayasuriya had other plans. He didn't just want to play cricket, he wanted to change how the game was played forever. The breakthrough came in 1996, when Sri Lanka hosted the Cricket World Cup. This was their chance to prove they belonged with the big boys of cricket. Jayasuriya opened the batting, and did something nobody had seen before. He attacked from the very first ball. While other teams played safely, he smashed boundaries like his life depended on it. He scored runs so fast that commentators couldn't keep up with their scorebooks. In just a few weeks, this unknown player from a small country became the most feared batsman in world cricket. When Sri Lanka won the World Cup, Jayasuriya wasn't just a hero, he was a god in his own country. But winning the World Cup did more than just make Jayasuriya famous. It made him incredibly wealthy. Suddenly, companies from around the world wanted him to advertise their products. Pepsi offered him millions to appear in their commercials. Reebok gave him huge contracts to wear their shoes and clothes. The Indian Premier League paid him enormous amounts to play just a few matches. Money was flowing into his bank account faster than he could count it. Within a few years, the boy from Matara had become one of the richest athletes in Asia. He bought expensive houses, luxury cars, and lived like a king. But as we'll see, all this money and fame came with a price that he never expected to pay. The first sign of trouble started with his marriage to Sandra de Silva in 2000. Sandra was a beautiful flight attendant who seemed perfect for a cricket star. Their wedding was like a fairy tale. The whole country celebrated with them. They had 3 children together, and appeared to be living the perfect life. Magazines put their photos on covers, calling them the ideal couple. But behind the smiles and public appearances, things were not as perfect as they seemed. Friends later said that Jayasuriya was changing. The money and fame were getting to his head. He was staying out late, going to parties without Sandra, and spending time with people who only cared about his wealth and status. Sandra tried to keep the family together, but it was getting harder every year. Jayasuriya was traveling constantly for cricket matches and business deals. When he was home, he seemed distant and distracted. There were whispers in their social circle about other women, about late-night phone calls, and about Jayasuriya being seen in places where a married man shouldn't be. Sandra was dealing with all this while trying to raise their 3 children and maintain her dignity in public. The pressure was building up like a volcano ready to explode, and everyone around them could sense that something bad was about to happen. The explosion came in 2012 when Sandra finally had enough. She filed for divorce. But this wasn't just any ordinary divorce, this was war. She accused Jayasuriya of abandoning his family and demanded 20 million Sri Lankan rupees as compensation. To put this in perspective, that amount could buy several luxury houses or feed thousands of families for years. When the news broke, it was front-page headlines in every newspaper. Television channels ran special programs about the divorce. Radio stations discussed it all day long. The whole country was shocked. How could their cricket hero's marriage fall apart so publicly? But the story got even more dramatic when details about Jayasuriya's wealth came out during the court case. The lawyers revealed that he was worth $16 million, an amount so huge that even wealthy people were impressed. This money came from everywhere: cricket salaries, endorsement deals, business investments, and property sales. He owned expensive houses in different countries, had shares in various companies, and possessed a collection of luxury items that most people could only dream about. The court documents listed everything from diamond jewelry to imported watches to that famous Audi A4 from the World Cup victory. While the divorce case was making headlines, another scandal was brewing behind the scenes. Jayasuriya had started a relationship with a woman named Malika Surisana while he was still married to Sandra. This wasn't just cheating, it was a public humiliation for Sandra, who had to watch her husband's new relationship being discussed on television and in newspapers. The affair made the divorce even more bitter and painful. Sandra wasn't just losing her husband, she was losing him to another woman in front of the entire country. For Jayasuriya, this relationship would become another source of controversy that would follow him for years. The battle over money and assets during the divorce revealed just how much wealth Jayasuriya had accumulated. But the most interesting part was the fight over that Audi A4 from the 1996 World Cup. Sandra's lawyers argued that since it was bought during their marriage, she deserved half of its value. Jayasuriya's team fought back, saying it was a personal award that represented his individual achievement, not something that belonged to their marriage. This car had become more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of his greatest moment, his pride, and his identity as a cricket legend. The fact that he might lose it in the divorce made the whole situation even more painful for him. After months of legal battles, the divorce was finally settled in 2013. Jayasuriya kept most of his wealth, including the precious Audi, but had to pay substantial amounts to Sandra for her and the children's support. He thought the worst was over, and he could start rebuilding his life with Malika. The media attention was dying down, and people were starting to focus on other stories. Jayasuriya began making public appearances again, doing cricket commentary, and seemed to be successfully moving on from the scandal. But if he thought his troubles were behind him, he was completely wrong. The biggest shock of his life was still coming, and when it hit in 2017, it would make the divorce drama look like a minor problem. The year 2017 started normally for Jayasuriya. He was doing well financially, his relationship with Malika was stable, and his children were growing up successfully despite the divorce drama. He was involved in cricket as a commentator and coach, making occasional public appearances, and seemed to have learned from his past mistakes. But in today's digital world, privacy is almost impossible to maintain, especially for famous people. In the middle of 2017, something happened that would test every lesson he thought he had learned about handling scandals and public humiliation. A private video of Jayasuriya, in a very personal and compromising situation, was leaked online. Within hours, this video spread across the internet like wildfire. Social media platforms, WhatsApp groups and websites were all sharing the video. Millions of people saw it within the first day. For a man who had always been private about his personal life, this was the ultimate nightmare. The video showed him in situations that no public figure would want the world to see, and there was no way to take it back or make people forget about it. The impact was immediate and devastating. Every major news channel in Sri Lanka ran stories about the video. Newspapers printed articles analyzing every detail. Social media was full of jokes, memes and discussions about what people had seen. Jayasuriya's sponsors immediately started cancelling their contracts with him. The Sri Lanka Cricket Board launched an official investigation. His family members had to deal with friends, neighbors and colleagues who had inevitably seen the video. For his teenage children, going to school became a daily humiliation as classmates and teachers had all seen their father in the most embarrassing situation possible. Jayasuriya tried everything to stop the spread of the video. His lawyers sent legal notices to websites and social media platforms demanding they remove it. He hired a public relations team to manage the crisis. He avoided all public appearances and refused to talk to the media. But in the age of the internet, once something goes viral, it's almost impossible to control. New copies of the video appeared as soon as old ones were removed. People saved it on their phones and shared it privately. The video became part of internet culture, and Jayasuriya became a subject of ridicule rather than respect. The personal cost of this scandal was enormous. Malika, who had stood by him through the divorce drama, now had to deal with her own humiliation as the video became public entertainment. His children, who were already dealing with the stigma of their parents' messy divorce, now had to face classmates who had seen their father in the most compromising situation imaginable. Jayasuriya himself became a recluse, rarely leaving his house and completely avoiding any public events. The man who had once loved being in the spotlight now seemed terrified of any kind of public attention. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse for Jayasuriya, they did. In 2019, the International Cricket Council delivered what felt like the final blow to his cricket legacy. He was banned from all cricket-related activities for 2 years because he refused to cooperate fully with investigators looking into corruption in Sri Lankan cricket. While he wasn't directly accused of match fixing, his failure to help the investigation was considered a serious violation of the sport's rules. For a man whose entire identity was built around his cricket achievements, being banned from the sport was perhaps more painful than any personal scandal. This ban was particularly devastating because it cut Jayasuriya off from the one area of his life where he still had respect and credibility. He couldn't work as a commentator, couldn't coach teams, couldn't attend official cricket events, and couldn't be involved in any activity connected to the sport that had made him famous. The ban meant that his cricket legacy, which had survived the divorce and even the video scandal to some extent, was now also under a cloud. Many fans, especially younger ones who didn't know much about his personal problems, learned about his troubles for the first time when the cricket ban was announced. Jayasuriya's response to the ban showed both his fighting spirit and his frustration with how his life had turned out. He denied any involvement in corruption and hired expensive lawyers to appeal the decision. He gave selective interviews claiming his innocence and expressing his disappointment with how cricket authorities had treated him. But his protests fell on largely deaf ears. The combination of the divorce drama, the video scandal, and now the cricket ban had created a narrative of a fallen hero that seemed impossible to overcome. Public opinion had turned against him, and even his most loyal fans were starting to question whether they really knew the man they had cheered for so many years. During this dark period, Jayasuriya learned who his real friends were. Many people who had surrounded him during his successful years disappeared when the scandals hit, but a core group of family members, close friends, and some former teammates stood by him. They argued that his mistakes were personal and shouldn't erase his contributions to Sri Lankan cricket. They pointed out that he had never been charged with any serious crimes, and that much of what he was being blamed for was either private matters or unproven allegations. These supporters became his lifeline during the darkest moments of his career and personal life. As his cricket ban neared its end in 2021, Jayasuriya slowly began trying to rebuild his public image. He started giving carefully planned interviews, where he expressed regret for his mistakes and talked about the lessons he had learned. He began working with young cricketers in an unofficial capacity, sharing his knowledge and experience while staying within the rules of his ban. He made selective public appearances, choosing events where he could focus on cricket rather than his personal controversies. The man who emerged from this period was noticeably different from the confident, sometimes arrogant figure of his playing days. The process of trying to rebuild his reputation has been slow and difficult. While some cricket fans have been willing to separate his playing achievements from his personal life, many others find it hard to forget the scandals. His story has become a cautionary tale that coaches use to warn young players about the dangers of fame and wealth. Cricket academies invite him to speak not just about batting techniques, but about making good life choices and handling the pressures that come with success. In a way, his failures have given him a different kind of expertise, the knowledge of what not to do when you become famous and wealthy. Today, Sanath Jayasuriya remains a complicated figure in Sri Lankan society. His cricket records are undeniable: over 13,000 runs in one-day internationals, more than 300 wickets, and most importantly, his crucial role in Sri Lanka's World Cup victory in 1996. These achievements can never be taken away from him, no matter what scandals have followed. That Audi A4, which he fought so hard to keep during his divorce, still sits in his garage as a reminder of his greatest triumph, but it also serves as a symbol of how far he has fallen, and how much he has lost along the way. The car represents the complexity of Jayasuriya's legacy. On one hand, it's a tangible reminder of a moment when he was at the absolute peak of his powers, when an entire nation celebrated his success, and when he was genuinely one of the best cricketers in the world. On the other hand, it's also a reminder of the bitter divorce battle, the financial disputes, and the beginning of his fall from grace. Every time he looks at that car, he must remember both his greatest triumph and his most difficult period. Looking at Jayasuriya's complete story, from his humble beginnings in Matara, to his World Cup heroics, to his spectacular fall from grace, several important lessons emerge. First, that success and wealth can change people in ways they never expected, and not always for the better. Second, that fame comes with responsibilities and consequences that extend far beyond the playing field. Third, that in the modern world, privacy is almost impossible to maintain, and personal mistakes can have very public consequences. Fourth, that redemption is possible but requires genuine accountability, sustained effort, and the acceptance that some consequences are permanent. The story also highlights the pressure that comes with being a national hero in a cricket-crazy country like Sri Lanka. When Jayasuriya was at his peak, he wasn't just an athlete, he was a symbol of national pride, a role model for millions of young people, and a representative of his country's potential. This kind of pressure can be overwhelming, and not everyone handles it well. The temptations that come with wealth and fame are real, and even the strongest people can make mistakes when they're constantly in the spotlight. Perhaps most importantly, Jayasuriya's story shows that heroes are human beings with flaws, weaknesses, and the capacity to make serious mistakes. This doesn't necessarily make them villains, but it does make them more complex than the simple narratives we often prefer. Sports fans, especially young ones, often want their heroes to be perfect both on and off the field. But real life is messier than that, and even the greatest athletes can struggle with personal issues that have nothing to do with their sporting abilities. As Jayasuriya continues to navigate his later years, his story serves as both an inspiration and a warning. It's inspiring because it shows that someone from humble beginnings can achieve incredible success through talent, hard work, and determination. It's a warning because it demonstrates how quickly that success can be undermined by poor personal choices and the inability to handle the pressures that come with fame and wealth. Whether his ultimate legacy will be defined more by his cricket brilliance or his personal scandals may depend on how he handles the remaining chapters of his life. The truth about Sanath Jayasuriya is that he's neither a perfect hero nor a complete villain. He's a flawed human being who achieved extraordinary success in one area of his life, while struggling with serious problems in others. His story is a reminder that we should appreciate athletic greatness, while also understanding that sports stars are not necessarily role models in all aspects of life. It's also a reminder that everyone deserves a chance at redemption, but that redemption requires acknowledging mistakes, accepting consequences, and working hard to become a better person. So there you have it, the complete unfiltered truth about one of cricket's most controversial legends. This isn't just a story about cricket, or even about scandal. It's a story about human nature, about the price of fame, and about the complexity of real life. Sanath Jayasuriya's journey from small-town boy to World Cup hero, to scandal-plagued figure is still ongoing, and how it ends will determine how history remembers him. But regardless of what happens next, his story will always serve as a powerful reminder that success and failure, triumph and tragedy, are often closer together than we think. Now I want to know what you think about this incredible story. Do you believe people deserve second chances after making serious mistakes? Can you separate an athlete's personal life from their sporting achievements? Should we expect our sports heroes to be perfect role models, or is it enough that they excel at their sport? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments section below, and don't hold back because these are exactly the kinds of complex questions that make for great discussions. If this deep dive into Jayasuriya's fascinating and troubled life has kept you glued to your screen, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now, and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started with these incredible untold stories from the world of sports. Share this video with anyone who thinks they know the real story behind cricket's biggest controversies, and let's keep this conversation going, because the truth is always more interesting than the headlines.